We're going to go to another question from Facebook. This one's from Steve. And he says hi to Thomas, first of all, which is really nice.
Hi, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Let's talk about something. So this is something that I think is really of interest to a lot of people in the UK, which is the NHS. So going back to the NHS, do you think that the US will push for a more privatised system as part of a trade deal?
So we don't know exactly what the US will push for. So I'm going to be speculating here a little bit. What we do know is that if you look at kind of areas where the US kind of tends to ask for concessions when it does trade deals, is it wants US firms to be able to provide services to foreign governments, right? The US thinks, we have a set of private healthcare firms in the US. We think they have services to provide that aren't available elsewhere. And so if you want to do a trade deal with us, one of the things we are likely to ask is you allow kind of US-based firms to be able to sell their services to the NHS. Now, whether that would entail kind of more privatisation of the NHS than is currently the case, I mean, not necessarily. It could do, but not necessarily. But it would certainly potentially involve more kind of private provision of services to the NHS.
Do you have any examples of...
Sorry.
Do you want some water?
No,
it's quite hard, isn't it? There's so many questions coming away. A kind of question related. Could other public services be privatised? So you spoke about there would be some services that private healthcare firms could offer in the UK. Are there any other public services that might see a similar impact?
It's certainly possible, right? The UK has already privatised, a lot of the services that are nationalised in many other European countries. If you think about the post office or the rail network, right? So the UK has already gone quite a long way down the line in terms of privatising services, rightly or wrongly. So that, there aren't necessarily too many more targets. The big one is the NHS because it's such a large chunk of public spending, and it's never going to be the case that a foreign government can force the UK to privatise something. What it can do is say, well, if you want to have a negotiation with us, say the UK might want access to their financial services markets, because the UK is a relatively successful provider of financial services. If you want to be able to sell your financial services to us, then we want to be able to sell, to your NHS or other service. And, so then we would face a choice. Is it worth giving up control over the NHS in that way in order to get access to the foreign markets? Trade agreements are always about these kind of trade-offs and compromises.
But you said right at the beginning that at the moment that's something that's kind of looking into not a crystal ball, but that we're not quite sure of. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I mean, it's simply the case that, countries, if I want to know what the US would ask for in a trade deal with the UK, it's not like I can go to a US government webpage and just download the details. We can look up, what they've done in past negotiations.
Okay.
But the future is always a little bit uncertain.